Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hormone Helper podcast. I'm Coach Andrew, your hormone helper from Fit for All Fitness. I personally coach over 1,600 men and women to help better understand their hormones so they can lose weight and get their metabolism back on track. With this podcast, you're going to hear from me and my special guests about everything from metabolism to thyroid to weight loss. And we even talk a little bit of sexy time as we chat to spread more knowledge thick like butter on your hormones. If you're ready to learn, I'm ready to share, so let's do this. Hello, everyone. I'm Coach Andrew, and welcome back to this week's episode. This past week, I've been absolutely filled with some new lifeblood as I've been focusing every morning on practicing gratitude and taking some well-needed cold baths. Yes, I've gotten into the cold tub craze, which is surprisingly has had a really positive effect on my morning energy and my joint inflammation from running. Although I will say, because of my surgery recently, I'm not running right now, but can't wait to hop back into both of those things and keep continuing with my cold bath. So just those two things alone, the removal of inflammation and my daily energy, are a huge plus for me. Now, in addition to this, my second energy boost comes from what I am working on program-wise. So I am in the process of setting up for another round of our Hormone Reboot Program, and that 8-week program is going to be starting August 1st, and I'm so excited to help people drop their excess fat, help them with their bloating and digestion, and most importantly, show them how to eat right for their body type so that way they can keep their hormones in check. Now, I will say we still have 8 spots left for the program, so if you want more info on it, just check out the show notes and head over to my contact section where I did actually a little video about the program so you can learn. Now, in doing this video about the program, it also came across to me that there are some very big differences in what I do as a hormone coach and what naturopaths do, because believe it or not, we are very, very different. So that's basically what this episode is about, what the difference is and ultimately what I can do and what I can't do. You know, in working with, let me see here, I think it's close to 6 different professionals at this point on my health journey. I've come to the understanding that not every person can help every single issue because the human body is really, really big and there's a lot of issues that the body can develop. So, for example, you hear me talking a lot about hormone support, about weight, about metabolism, about improving your thyroid, and a lot of issues involving digestion. Now, I choose to focus on these things really for a couple of reasons. One, I've got a personal connection to every single one of these symptoms and challenges, and I know what it felt like to be 130 pounds, be fatigued. I know what it feels like to be super bloated to the point where you feel like you're going to burst. And I also know what it feels like to have inflammation issues and to have a thyroid that's slowed down as a result of my stress and my hormone levels. So for me, I would never, ever want someone to experience that discomfort, the pain, and the frustration that I had, because I spent a lot of time searching for answers and going back and forth between doctors who didn't believe what I said. And they just looked at me because I was really young. And it was unfortunate, not a knock on doctors. I do know a few practitioners who are phenomenal, and I've worked with them to help get me to where I am today. But I have firsthand experience of going to my GP and having them tell me that you just need more rest and that it's a part of where I was in my age, which is wild to me because it's not like I'm old. And I've also had people tell me that there's nothing wrong with me. So number one, huge personal connection to health and the hormone aspect. So that personal connection is really why I focus on these things. Nobody is really making sense of this stuff from a hormone perspective. And I feel that if I'm going to contribute and make change in this industry, that I've got to do my part to make sure that people understand their bodies better by knowing how their hormonal operating system actually works. So that's why I took a bunch of schooling on reading blood work and certifications on nutrition and training, because I need to know the information front and back before I help you or potential clients break down whatever they're looking at in front of them. So a good teacher always knows the material after all, right? That's a big thing. Now, the final reason, and this is reason number 2 for me, is that I love human connection. So I crave it every single day. And this is why I do this podcast, why I put out seminars, why I create events for schools and for workplaces. Because in my mind, what a better way to connect with human beings and beautiful souls than to actually help them with their goals. And that's literally any goals. Could be health, fitness, lifestyle, headspace stuff, emotional. None of them are too big or too small for me to be a part of. So that's why I love being in the coach industry and why I've decided to really focus on hormones as a hormone coach. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why am I sharing all this? Well, because I will be the first and most likely one of the only coaches to tell you that I can't help everyone. I know this for a fact. There are professionals out there that are a better fit to work with certain individuals. Example, I don't work with kids. I love kids, but their hormones and their metabolism, they change wildly through puberty. Most of the time, their issues are connected with habit adjustments or stress and coping mechanisms. And I don't work with kids because they won't listen to me because I'm an old fart, right? Compared to the majority of the people who are dealing with kids day to day. Now, another aspect is I don't work with athletes. Not that I can't work with them, but the truth is they're going to be better served if someone like an athletic therapist or a sports specific person was working with them, not me. They have so many sports specific needs regarding training and nutrition. A person working with them really has to understand what sport they're in and how it affects their body. So there are so many other components. And here's the key with that. You have to know what certain practitioners and what certain coaches can actually do before you decide who you want to work with for your health and for your fitness goals. So what I want to do with this podcast episode and chat about right now is explain to you the confusion that I get when people approach to work with me. Because I'll tell you right now, people think I'm a lot of things. People make the assumption that I'm a naturopath. People will often say, like, I don't know, you just seem like a personal trainer. Titles aside, there's a lot of things that overlap to what I can do. However, what we all do is different. So in providing some clarity, whether it's getting some clarity on whether or not you should be working with me, whether or not a naturopath's a good fit, a personal trainer. I'd really like to break down all of those things so then that way you can understand what we can do. And in starting with that, I want to talk about a naturopath. So, a naturopath, also known as an ND, these are healthcare providers who work with natural therapies to support and stimulate healing. So, they tend to do things like acupuncture, they draw blood, and they dispense and prescribe drugs. So, from a naturopathic perspective, their entire purpose and focus is about doing things holistically. That being said, it's doing stuff holistically through medication and supplementation. That's a big part. So they will look at lifestyle changes. They will read blood work and make sure that it's within your range, which I absolutely love. And then from there, they're going to implement certain types of supplementation or worst case medication because they're leading with more holistic stuff first to try to correct some of the hormonal imbalances or metabolic balances that are there. So these supplements could be anything like ashwagandha, could be bovine gland to help for someone's thyroid, could be a pre or a probiotic. But because they are trained from the medical field and from that medical industry, essentially they are looking at how can we fix someone's immediate issue, and they're looking at the now. So hence where all of the prescription aspect comes from. So I debated for a really long time whether or not I wanted to go into naturopathy. And for me, it wasn't a matter of the information or how long I'd be spending in school, but really how I aim and how I focus to help our clientele. And from my perspective, going through all of that to the only difference would be to just I'm choosing to do it with food versus they're doing it with supplementation. I was like, ultimately, I'm not a big fan of prescribing medications or being on medications. So that's the only reason why I didn't choose the naturopathic way. Otherwise, the way that they read blood work, the way that they're customizing the solution to you, the way that they're looking at lifestyle is fine. Now, that being said, naturopaths are not dietitians, they're not nutritionists, and don't have, I mean, they have a rudimentary understanding of food, but it's the same level of understanding that your regular doctor or practitioner has. So if you're going to the doctor and your doctor knows like, hey, have fiber in your diet, make sure you have protein, like it's at a basic level, they understand what food can do for you, but they don't have the skills, the knowledge, or the ability to write out a food protocol or to change food based off of your hormones in your metabolism. So, a naturopath's sole goal is for you to get into baseline function, which is essentially the same goal of your GP. Your general practitioner, they're going to look at your blood levels, and as long as you're within range, that range being 16 and 75 for years, as long as your hormones are within that range, legally, you are at a level where it's like, hey, this person's fine, I can't do anything for you. And that's why most people, when they go to doctors, they get super frustrated and they're told, like, hey, you're fine, just go home. And they're like, well, I don't feel well. Now, naturopaths will take a step deeper because they're looking for holistic options. They're looking for ways to reduce stress, to treat lifestyle, to help with digestion. And that's really good because instead of looking at the age range of 16 to 75, they now take a step deeper in and they're like, where are you at for your age? Where should your hormones be for your body type? How should your metabolism be functioning with where you are in your life? And that gives the freedom and the ability to be a lot more specific instead of having this general range that GPs are at. That being said, the limitation from a naturopath perspective is the prescriptive way. So, because they don't have the knowledge of working with food or of doing things in addition, the only thing that they can do is prescribe you a supplement or ultimately prescribe you a medication. To me, that's a little tough for me to swallow, right? No, no pun intended there. But the fact that you have to be on the supplements in order for them to work, what I find in my experience is supplements are great in addition to, and that's what the word supplement means, in addition to activity, in addition to healthy lifestyle choices, in addition to sleep, but they're not in replacement of. And if the protocol or the process or the plan only works when you're using the supplement, then you're really only fixing the symptoms. You're not fixing the issue that's causing the symptoms. So, where a lot of people come to me after seeing a naturopath, it's not that the naturopath didn't work, but it's like the moment they stopped the protocol and the supplementation, all of their problems came back, which means that we're only looking at the symptoms when we're using these medications or when we're using the supplements. So that's essentially what naturopaths do. Now, let's go in a whole other way and talk personal training. Many people tend to clump up everything into personal training. They think when they hire a personal trainer, they're just either like counting reps and creating workout plans, but then they go the other way where it's like my personal trainer is going to do nutrition, he's going to do lifestyle, he's helping me with stress, and they also think holistic and lifestyle change. The reality is as a personal trainer, personal training is locked into essentially training support. So anything in terms of exercise management, in assigning different routines, or in building out a process around activity. Sure, that also indicates common sense things like if your client's not sleeping, tell them to sleep 8 hours, that's fine. But as someone who's not a nutritionist or not a dietitian, a nutrition or a personal trainer cannot create a nutrition protocol for you. They cannot tell you what to eat every single day. They can say, hey, here's a general guideline of how I eat and foods that are healthy, because you can find that anywhere. But legally, and of course, to protect you as a client, they shouldn't be giving any nutrition or any dietary advice because they don't know how. There's a reason why when I took a lot of schooling for the nutrition side of it and to become that nutritionist, food can really change the way you feel, and eating certain foods can actually really hurt you. And a lot of people don't realize this, like just like you can with supplements take so much iron that you actually start to develop a problem, or you can overdose on zinc and potassium. Like too much of something is still going to be bad for you. And what many personal trainers will do is they will try to tell their clients, hey, listen, I can do everything for you. They do nutrition very poorly. They often put clients on really, really restrictive diets in an effort to help them lose weight or help them get into shape. And because they don't have the knowledge of what the long-term hormone effect is, many of the clients that come to me after they've worked with a personal trainer, they're like, sure, I lost 15 pounds or 20 pounds with this coach. But then the moment I started like continuing my activity, continuing this path, I started restrictive eating. I started gaining the weight back. I started feeling chronic fatigue. My thyroid started to fall apart. My digestion started to get worse. And that's because they don't fully understand the long term side effects of changing certain diets. So, personal training is great. It's great for someone who has never ever done activity before. It's great for someone who maybe has an injury and needs to be watched or needs to be supported so that way they can train safely. And again, I have worked with a personal trainer when coming out of all of my hormone treatments and I was 130 pounds. I needed to get back to where I was. And it was a safe way to do it when I was in a compromised position because I had someone watching my form and making sure that I was progressing in the way that I should. And my coach, Chris, he was absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely loved him to death. He was incredibly supportive. He also would help keep me motivated with my activity, even though that was a really hard part for my life, both in my headspace and hormonally. But the limitations really stopped at the activity piece. Anything past that, whether it's going into a lot of emotional or trauma based stuff, or it's working on nutrition, they don't have the qualifications or the expertise to do that, and you're going to get a really subpar result. So alongside working with that personal trainer, I was working with a naturopath at the same time because I understood what the differences were, and I had to live that personally for me to know exactly what they were capable of. So personal training, great. I was a personal trainer. I really did believe when I started into the health industry that just doing activity was enough. But in learning the nutrition mainly for myself, I realized a couple of things very, very clearly. Number one, your hormones are your back end operating system. They operate everything. You're not going to be able to build muscle. You're not going to be able to have solid digestion. You're not going to be able to absorb food. You're not going to be able to have healthy skin. You're not going to be able to have a fast metabolism if your hormones are off. You can exercise till the sun drops every single day. You can continuously cut calories or change up your diets or go into different diets, but it's not going to change the fact that your operating system's not running well. That was the first thing I recognized doing activity. The second thing was in changing someone's diet, and this is especially important as well, things like going vegan, vegetarian, doing keto, doing intermittent fasting. When a coach or a personal trainer has you change that, they're not fully aware, or unless they are certified in nutrition and stuff like I am, they're not necessarily going to be fully aware of what the long-term side effect is. And there's tons of long-term changes that happen. And this is why our diet has to be flexible and we can't be on a regimented plan where we're weighing things all the time, because long term, it's going to have a detrimental effect on your metabolism because your thyroid is going to start to lift higher and higher. So you get to this point where if someone's been on keto or someone's been doing carb cycling or intermittent fasting for a long time, their hormones change to compensate for that dietary lifestyle. So the moment they start eating normal or they start going back to just a regular way of eating, they can't. And that's because their hormones have become accustomed to this. This is why most people, when working with personal trainers, they get like a hard sticking point where they're like, oh, wow, I've lost up to this much weight, or I've seen up to this result. I can't see any more results past this, but like I have to continue to diet like crazy and I have to continue to eat like crazy just to keep where I'm at. That's because your hormones are recognizing I can keep this. I know how to keep this, but there's no way that I can change because I don't have the hormonal fortitude or I don't have the metabolic strength to actually do that. So where I tend to differ is really focusing on the nutrition side of it and the lifestyle, so that way you can facilitate activity and you can actually facilitate your hormones, which is huge. So let's go into this hormone coaching. And I tell people hormone coaching, and people like don't understand. They're like, what do you do? Just like read blood work and then you throw a prescription out and that's it. No, absolutely not. Okay. Hormone coaching has aspects of naturopathy and of the personal training, but it leaves really two things out. Number one, it leaves out the reliance on medication. So there's no medication as a part of my process. And number two, it leaves what I call like the session style support, where you're left waiting for support in between. One of the things that I found when working with a personal trainer was that if I only had 2 sessions a week, that was the only time that I could get support. And it was really, really tough for me, because if my session was like on Wednesday and then Saturday I'm struggling, I'm basically screwed. I've got to wait until next Wednesday to either ask my questions or get the support that I need. And hormone coaching, when I built it out, I really had in mind the long term takeover of someone for their health. And by takeover, I mean at some point, you have to start understanding how to eat right for your body type. You have to start understanding what hormones you need to be able to maintain your metabolism or your weight moving forward. You have to be confident in the way that you're eating nutrition is going to be something that's sustainable and integrated into your routine. And of course, you've also got to be confident from the activity first. And that's really the way that I approach it from our programs, whether you're joining our Hormone Reboot Program, which is basically designed to make sure that we're bringing your hormones back to the new level of stability that it's supposed to be at, or you're joining our Vantage program, which is our 16-week program, in which case we're addressing some long-term goals like some weight or really bad bloating and digestion. It doesn't matter what program you're a part of, the process and the way that we tackle the goals ends up being the same. We always work on digestion first, because if you can't absorb the nutrients, you're never ever going to be able to repair and get back your panel. A lot of people have digestive issues without even realizing it. They have nutrient absorption issues, which is why their hormones started to wane down, or they just have a lot of chemical toxicity that we can clear out relatively easily. Once we start doing that, what people are going to find is the symptoms start disappearing. You no longer have issues of bloating. You no longer have issues of IBS or constipation. Your digestion, your hunger actually starts to level off. You lose the cravings for sugar and salt. Your energy becomes stable. Now, at this point, now we can start working on some of these hormonal highs and lows. We can start working on improving your thyroid, which improves your metabolism. We can start working on either lowering your estrogen for females or males if it's too high, or stabilizing it so it's not in the stomach. We can work on cortisol, which then increases your ability to tolerate stress. So whether it's physical stress from your workouts or it's mental and emotional stress just from your lifestyle, your body can tolerate more stress because you have a greater capacity. Then we start to slowly elevate your muscle density by increasing your testosterone, so that way your body can become stronger and stronger. So each time through the process, regardless of what issues you're coming with, we're doing just like a naturopath. We're looking at blood work. Where are you currently? And we're making decisions based off of your body type and your hormone panel. That's number one. Two, we put that focus on digestion to make sure that you can actually absorb. Your digestion's like your furnace of this entire house of hormones. If you can't absorb food, you're not going to put any fuel to the fire. So your metabolism's not going to be able to light up and burn like it should. Once we do that, we can start improving the metabolism, and then we start tweaking the hormones on and as needed. This is why our process is largely built on food, because you are what you eat. And if you are fueling yourself properly, you're not going to need the medications. You're not going to need to be on crazy supplements because it's already built into the food. We do it with the micronutrients. We're making sure that you're eating the vitamins and minerals needed to be able to facilitate that change. And then at that point, hey, if you're struggling with activity, cool. Best part about being a certified personal trainer is we can build out those programs and still help you with the activity piece if that's something that you need. Mostly, people just need that guidance and confidence to know, hey, what I'm doing activity wise is not going to hurt me. It's going to strengthen my muscles. And now I know how to exercise as well, too. So this process can be anywhere from 8 weeks with our Hormone Reboot Program to 16 weeks, which is our Vantage program. But this is what the difference is between being a naturopath, which is medication supplementation focus, personal trainer, who's just really activity focused, and someone like a hormone coach like myself that has the ability to blend in pieces and do it without having the medication. So that's a very, very large part of what I do, and hopefully that clears up. Now, the hormone coaching that I do is really about being 100% holistic in the way that you're treating your body. So for me, I value food first approach. I value making changes off of your body type, not just your blood work, which is really important. And I value focusing on the root cause, not just the change, because it's really easy these days. And I feel this is where sometimes I'm disappointed when I see other coaches out there who really just focus on the result. They're like, hey, you want 20 pounds down? Cool. Let's just get you 20 pounds down. That's easy. Weight loss, super, super easy. To maintain that weight loss, that's the real challenge. Anybody can drop 20 pounds. Anyone can even drop 30 or 40 pounds. That's relatively simple. But can you keep it off? Are you really focusing on the root cause as to why the weight came up in the first place? Or the root cause from digestion? Anyone, if you strip away anything that's really hard to digest and eat, and you're only eating things that are liquid, or you're only consuming vegetables that are not inflammatory, anyone cannot have digestive issues for a week. And someone could be like, oh, great. My coach said, hey, let's make these changes. And now all of a sudden, I don't have any digestive issues anymore. But then the moment you eat gluten, the moment you eat dairy, the moment you eat something that maybe has some spice or that's a little hard for you to digest, boom, your bloating and all of your issues appear again. That's because by focusing on just the change, you leave out the root cause. You're not looking at why these things keep happening. And that's actually a question that maybe you should even ask yourself. If you're bloated all the time, why are you bloated all the time? That's huge. If you feel crazy cravings for sugar and salt, why does that keep happening? If you feel like you're relying on coffee all the time, why? Why do you need coffee? One thing I'll tell you is through the way that I've eaten, even for myself, because I'm a big believer in you got to practice what you preach and live the lifestyle that I'm promoting all the time. Like, I'm not on a meal plan. I'm not. People are like, oh, like you just go to restaurant. Yeah, I can eat like a regular human being, but I understand how to eat for myself. I understand my hunger and my fullness cues. I understand when my digestion is off, how to fix that very, very quickly. I understand when I have very, very high stress or high performance times in which my cortisol is tested. I feel it and I know the things to look for. So I'm always adapting my nutrition. And by doing that, it now allows me to just eat freely and have that flexibility. So a large part of this is making sure that the integration is in mind, that you're building this not just as a protocol or a plan or something that you're going to do before summer or something that you're going to use to drop 10 pounds before winter. You're really looking at it like, if I can consistently maintain what I'm doing right now for the rest of my life, is this going to be realistic? Is this going to be something that I can stick to? One other thing that I value as well is that the programs or the process that I do, it has an end in mind. Like, to me, my greatest pet peeve, and some people are like, what do you mean by that? Like, my greatest pet peeve is there is no forever coaching with the way I do hormone coaching. Because I will tell you, like, it's forever coaching to me, or the definition of forever coaching is someone who is with a coach for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. They haven't lost any weight. They haven't seen any results. Their bloating is still really bad. Their digestion is still there. There's no progress. There's no understanding. There's no growth. And yet they're still a part of a coaching process. And many people have these really long commitments where it's like, this year, next year, the year after that. And I look at that and I go, when is this person actually going to have the confidence to do this stuff by themselves? And that's for me, like what forever coaching is and what I dislike about the industry is like, if I don't teach you how to do it by yourself, you're always going to be dependent on someone else. And like, you're not a little kid, like you shouldn't be dependent at your age. Yes, sure. It's important. Like we have clients, I think our longest client now is 6 years. However, her change and what she went through the process was totally different. So she's, I think, 72 or 73 at this point. So when she first started, she was having weight issues. So we helped her lose, I think it was close to 40 pounds. Then she had really, really bad sciatica. She had to have a spine surgery. She did like a headstand in yoga, which was wild. I didn't even realize it was possible. But she did a headstand, compressed something, and it gave her permanent sciatica. So after the surgery, we helped her work through the mobility, the pain through that. That took about 9 months to be able to do. And then from that, because she was really stressed out, her cortisol, her hormones were really off. So we were working with her on the hormone piece. So, like, the goals were always changing, but through this, she continued to get growth, she continued to get development, and she continued to see progress. And that's the most important piece of why it can't be forever coaching where you don't learn, is ultimately a good coach is someone who teaches you how to do it so you're confident to do it by yourself. My goal is to pass the baton to you and really to make you the superstar and I become your cheerleader. So those are really the differences. And ultimately, like, coaching I do doesn't just reset hormones through the process. Like, we're tackling your digestion so you can get rid of bloating. We are going through your routine to help you keep more time for yourself. We're working on fat loss so you can feel confident picking up that new dress if you want, buying that new suit jacket. We cover your activity so you can start workouts at the gym. Like, it's literally everything. And all of this to really circle into a really important part, which I had a conversation with my partner with. Sometimes I get questions, really strange questions on credentials. Um, and when someone asks me what my credentials are, it's really hard for me to answer. And it's not because I don't have credentials. Like, sure, I have credentials. Okay. You really can't do any work legally without it. Like, I'm a registered nutritionist. I have certifications to read blood work. I'm a certified personal trainer. There's a bucket ton of stuff. Like, I've got, I think, 15 at this point: fascial movement, strength training, conditioning, endocrine weight loss. There's a lot of stuff. But from a credential piece, I'm going to be really truthful here. I will personally tell you that credentials aren't everything. As a matter of fact, they're probably 10% of the entire puzzle that's going to get you results or have you actually see change in your life. And I want you to think about this right now. How many times have you gone to a doctor who knew nothing about nutrition and activity and told you to take a pill? How many times have you or a family member demanded to see a specialist where maybe you got an ultrasound, you got a colonoscopy or something, and then that specialist told you you're fine, go home, when you knew that you weren't? How many times have you seen a practitioner or a specialist who made the wrong call or who gave you a medication in which you were like, I'm actually not going to take this, and you got better? Weren't these people qualified? Of course they were, on paper at least, right? These people, they've taken more schooling than we realize, right? After all, like, the average specialist spends, I think it's like 6 years to become a doctor and then 2 to 4 years to specialize in a field. So We know deep down that credentials don't guarantee results. We all know this. And this isn't even just in the health field. How many times have you worked with someone on a business and they had a fancy certification? It was an architect. They built a plan that looked terrible. Like, we know deep down that credentials don't guarantee results. So when I get questions on credentials, I ask, why do we look for the title? That's a big question. Why do we keep saying to ourselves, it has to be a different specialist than someone that I've worked with before? And I've come up with a really interesting answer in talking back and forth with Lorna. The simple answer is this: it removes us from taking ownership that our health challenge is our problem. Whoa, right? And I say whoa because that sounds really hard. It sounds like a really high level of accountability. But I will tell you this, the moment that I started to see changes in my life and in my health was when I leaned into my highest self and said, this is on me to take control of my life. Because whenever I gave other specialists responsibility, whenever I said, this person is going to do the work for me, I would always be disappointed when they didn't do it the way that I wanted or when they dismissed me. And I was dismissed by a lot of professionals. I went to 3 different urologists who all told me I was too young to have issues. I had no hormonal problems. I was just faking it. My final straw before hiring someone from Los Angeles was a specialist who literally walked me through a questionnaire talking about depression, because he was like, maybe you keep seeing all of these people because you're depressed and you want someone to talk to. When I knew how I felt physically and that there was an answer. So if I didn't keep looking, who knows how bad the tumor that was removed would have progressed? Who knows how bad the other aspects of my hormonal challenges would have progressed if I had just said, this person is the professional, let me fully trust them. And I'm not the only one with a story like that. I'm sure that you've heard stories that are worse or have come across people who have more challenges. And this is why I really say, although there are so many different specialists for your health and there are so many different opportunities to get started, it is on you to take control of your life. Every single client I work with says the same 3 things. 1, I've worked with a bunch of people. 2, I'm tired of where I am. 3, I know that now it's time for me to take initiative for myself. And in doing that, that's really when their life changes, because that's when you apply all the tools the way that you should. That's when you show up for yourself in your highest form. And that's really where you get to lean in and be the best version of yourself that you can be. I will tell you that is really hard. And I had to learn really quickly when I was really young, because I think it was only 22 or 23 when I started having all my hormonal problems. Like, when I was sitting in the hospital and my parents would drop me off and there was nobody there and it was just me by myself, I learned really quickly. I was like, it's on me. It's on me to ring the bell if I need help. It's on me to talk to the nurse, hey, this wasn't done right, or hey, can you help me with this? And sure, I still received help, but I had to ask for it. I had to be the person who put up their hand and who said, I'm going to take charge. And that's why, for myself, the question of credentials is not like, what specific credential do you have? Because if someone asks you that and you say, well, what credentials are you looking for? They don't know. They have no idea. And that's the funny part, right? Is if they're like, hey, what credentials do you have? And I say, cool, got tons. Which one are you looking for? They're like, I don't know. And that's a high level of fear that is saying, am I going to have to take control over this? Because people who are in a fear state will say, oh, I've already worked with someone with that credential, so this is out. However, someone who's in a state of self-awareness, someone who's in a state of, I'm ready to make a change, I'm ready to do this, they're going to hear maybe the same credential and they're going to say, perfect, this is a different person in a different aspect, and I'm probably going to get a different result. So that is really, really important. But that's kind of what I wanted to share on this podcast is, as a hormone coach, I have access to a lot of different things. I'll openly tell everyone I might not be the best fit for you, but unless you have a conversation, I have no idea whether or not I can help. And that's really important. And if you're focusing on a long term solution that ends up with your success in mind, not working with a coach forever, then you're in alignment with what I aim to do and what I've done every single day being a coach. At this point, we're literally close to 3,000 people, 8 years that I've been helping people, and 3,000 people. So my process isn't new. It's not something that you're not going to be a guinea pig. This isn't trial and error. This is really just how do we build it out for you and make those changes. So that's all I have for you today on this week's episode. I really appreciate you guys and gals for listening. And other than that, stay tuned for the next episode and have a great rest of the day. Bye.